Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a deep, uh, really fascinating ideological knot today.
Hmm.
The call for a social democratic technocracy.
It sounds like a contradiction in terms, doesn't it?
Eh,
The revolutionary energy of workers' democracy power to the people sort of clashing with expert governance or technocracy.
Right, which usually makes you think of, well, rule by unelected intellectuals.
Exactly.
And that's precisely why we're here. We're
Mhm.
trying to understand the source material that claims this fusion isn't just possible, but, well, necessary.
And we've got two key documents to look at.
Yeah, first, The Worker's Struggle, which is this highly philosophical text, actually written by an author while imprisoned, sets out the blueprint.
Wow. Okay.
And then there's the modern political platform of the Social Democratic Technocracy Party, the SDTP. So bridging theory and practice.
So our mission, really, for you listening, is to figure out how this movement justifies uniting power to the people with rule by knowledge.
And what mechanisms they actually propose to make sure the experts, truly serve the working class, not just become a new elite.
That's the crucial question.
And that philosophical source, the worker's struggle, it hooks you right away. It's anything but passive.
How so?
The author writes, it's not a lament, not a complaint from a cell, but a weapon. Calls it a map for corruption.
A map for corruption. That's intense.
Yeah, meaning a guide to navigate and dismantle the existing corrupt system. Written in silence, it says, to share this vision of technocracy joined with the will of the working class.
That framing really signals the intensity, doesn't it? They're not talking reform.
No.
They're giving instructions to dismantle. The book itself is meant as, like, ideological ammunition.
So before building anything new, they have to completely tear down the old structure in their argument.
Right.
And the text kicks off with this really harsh diagnosis exploitation. It argues it isn't just some flaw in capitalism, it is the system.
Purposefully designed, it says, so that power and profit concentrate while the many are silenced.
And what really jumps out is this concept of alienation.
Explain that a bit.
The source emphasizes that the worker creates value, builds things, but stays poor.
Because the product of their labor is what? Taken, seized, and sold by others.
Exactly. So the worker becomes like a stranger to the world they themselves are creating. It's framed as this tragedy where the machine gets worshipped for its output.
While the person actually running it is forgotten, invisible.
A very specific kind of invisibility, yeah.
Yeah.
But right after defining exploitation, it pivots
To what?
to this really powerful, almost mobilizing idea.
Yeah.
Oppression is human-made.
And therefore unmade by humans.
Ah, okay, so it reframes the struggle. It's not inevitable.
Right. It says the system is changeable. It depends on political will.
And this critique then swings over to the current ruling classes, their failure.
Oh, yeah. Sharply. The analysis is just sweeping. Elites promise order, stability.
But deliver decay. That's the word they use.
Yeah. And they're manipulative, thriving on ignorance, governing through lies and fear. Because presumably, an educated, organized population would see through it and reject their rule.
Makes sense. And this indictment, it spares no one currently in power. It's got this specific political warning.
Who does it target?
Well, neither the far-right nationalists, who it says cry for unity while dividing neighbor against neighbor,
Okay.
nor the centrists who preach moderation while preserving the same rot that devours the nation.
So basically, anyone upholding the status quo is part of the problem.
That's the takeaway. If the problem is systemic decay, driven by a self-serving elite,
The solution can't come from that same elite. Sideral.
well, so salvation, it argues, has to come from the collective strength of their own class.
Not waiting for the benevolence of elites. Got it.
Okay, that's a pretty total critique of the existing system.
Yeah.
So how do they propose to rebuild, to avoid those same failures?
Well, they start with democracy, interestingly, but they argue current democracy is a hollow shell.
Why hollow? What's failing now, according to them?
The source is pretty specific. Modern elections. Not enough. Votes are manipulated by propaganda,
Sure.
and leaders rise through spectacle, not actual wisdom or competence.
So you get democracy without merit. That's a striking phrase.
It is, and it means crucial decisions, big complex stuff, get guided by, popular whim or chance or just political theater, leading the nation towards ruin, they say.
That definitely resonates today, doesn't it? Thinking about climate change, automation, handled through sound bites.
Exactly. But they don't say ditch democracy. That's key.
Right, they can't just throw out rule by the people. It's the voice of the worker, the only shield against tyranny.
But it needs rigor. It needs strengthening, and this is where the synthesis comes in.
Okay, let's get into that. Democracy is the foundation.
It's framed as the soil where freedom grows, the essential voice. Technocracy, then, is the structure built upon it.
The engine that gives direction, that's the analogy they use. So you need both working together. But here's the critical point, right? For you listening, how do they stop these technocratic experts from just becoming a new ruling class, a new kind of authoritarian elite?
Yeah, that tension is addressed head-on. The text explicitly says, technocracy without democracy. Cold and authoritarian, inherently dangerous.
Okay.
But democracy without technocracy, chaotic and weak, unable to solve complex problems effectively.
So the synthesis needs some kind of binding mechanism.
Yeah, they define one. Technocracy is the harnessing of skill for the common good. Knowledge guides policy, yes, but only as a service to the democratic will.
So the experts advise and implement, but the direction comes from the people.
That's the idea. Leaders should be those whose knowledge is proven, sure, but also whose loyalty is to the people. Accountability is crucial.
So it's not strictly rule by experts.
No, more like rule guided by experts, with accountability flowing back, they propose, to worker councils and the whole democratic process.
Giving the collective voice some serious practical direction, making sure expertise serves everyone, not just, personal profit or power.
Okay, so let's look at the nuts and bolts, the actual policies for this proposed new state.
Right. Pillar 1, merit first. Now, we hear meritocracy a lot, but they define this differently.
How so?
It's about rewarding competence, dedication, wisdom, but explicitly not things like inheritance or privilege. It's anti-nepotism, anti-cronyism built in.
So merit in this specific context is framed as justice.
Yeah, exactly. The capable serve the many. But that raises a huge question, doesn't it?
Which is,
How do you actually measure competence objectively? And how do you stop this meritocratic class from just, looking after its own generation after generation?
that's the classic challenge of any merit-based system. What's their answer?
The text implies the check is the democratic structure itself. Constant accountability back to those worker councils. Your status is determined only by learning and labor, and every decision is judged by its tangible service to the people. It's trying to actively break down those self-sealing class structures.
Interesting. Okay, that leads right into Pillar 2 then, economic democracy.
Right, because political democracy, the source argues, is just a half-truth without economic democracy.
If people have no economic power, their vote doesn't mean much in practice.
So what are the actual mechanisms? How is wealth handled differently?
The core principle, wealth created by labor belongs to those who labor. Simple statement, radical implications.
How's that work? Cooperative.
Yes, cooperatives, worker councils, places where workers actually share in decisions about production, investment, the purpose of the work.
So, instead of a CEO unilaterally deciding to offshore a factory just to squeeze out more profit.
The worker council has a say. They weigh profit against sustainability, community impact, the actual value of what's being made. That's economic power.
And technology, automation. That's a huge concern today.
Reframed completely. Automation must be an instrument of liberation, freeing people from drudgery and not casting them into poverty.
The gains from productivity have to be shared.
They must be. Every technological advance should be an advance in human dignity, not a reason for mass unemployment. That's a core tenet.
Okay, and then there's human dignity as a pillar itself.
Right. Basic conditions of life, healthcare, housing, these are rights, not charity, not commodities.
Housing, for instance, is called a foundation of human existence, built for service, not speculation.
That directly challenges the idea of housing as primarily an investment vehicle.
Yeah, it suggests the state's role is to ensure people are housed, period, not to facilitate wealth generation through property markets.
And healthcare similarly. Universal, free from profit motive, driven by science, distributed by need.
And there's a fourth pillar we shouldn't miss: inclusion.
Absolutely critical. The text is unambiguous. A democracy that excludes is a lie.
So, full equality for LGBTQ people, all minorities, guaranteed.
And the reasoning is both moral and practical. Solidarity demands inclusion. Plus, the enemies of progress thrive on division. Unity is strength, essentially.
Makes sense if you're trying to build a unified workers' movement.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, I think.
Cool.
This whole philosophy, this deep critique and plan, hammered out in confinement, it's now the explicit basis of a real modern political party. the SDTP.
The Social Democratic Technocracy Party.
Right. And their platform is basically a direct translation of these concepts into a contemporary political program.
What's their main pitch?
It's pretty straightforward. Power to the people, guided by reason. They're positioning themselves as the necessary solution to these huge, complex crises we face now.
Right.
Climate collapse, inequality, automation, the big systemic ones.
And who are they trying to reach?
They call themselves the first party of the digital generation, clearly targeting Gen Z, even Gen Alpha.
So a generation may be frustrated with the old political games, looking for something that feels more functional.
Seems like it. You see it in their slogans, too. Things like not left, not right, forward SDTP.
Trying to break that traditional spectrum.
Yeah, and another one, the worker's algorithm. Justice plus knowledge. It's trying to sound pragmatic, data-driven, almost technical, not just ideological.
Suggesting the solutions are technical and economic, maybe, rather than just rhetorical battles.
That seems to be the angle, bypassing the old arguments.
And is this just like a fringe idea? Or is it gaining traction?
Well, according to our source material, it's becoming a real political force. The SDTP has apparently surged to 20 seats in parliament.
20 seats?
Wow. Positioning itself as the largest and most disciplined opposition force in Neutronia. Wherever Neutronia is, this party is making waves.
So the revolutionary philosophy is actually in the political arena competing for power.
And they're framing this whole synthesis, this union of social democracy and technocratic expertise as the future majority.
Basically saying this is what the next generation needs and wants to fix the mess left by previous ones.
That's the message they're sending. #outro.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Where does this leave us?
Well, it's an attempt, isn't it? An incredibly ambitious attempt to synthesize that raw revolutionary energy from the workers' struggle.
Written from a prison cell.
With a really grounded, evidence-based system of actually governing technocracy.
It definitely highlights this idea that big systemic change needs both things. You need the political voice, the power to challenge the status quo.
The will of the people.
But you also need the scientific direction, the pragmatism, to make sure the solutions you put in place actually work, that they solve those chronic problems of inequality and elite failure.
It's trying to give the collective will the right tools, maybe, and the right direction.
To build their own future, defined by dignity, competence, not just chance or rhetoric.
And there's one final thought from the source material we wanted to leave you with, something to mull over.
Yeah, this really stood out.
The text stresses again and again that no workers' democracy can endure without an educated people.
It's not just about schools, is it?
No. It says the Republic must invest in schools, yes, but also in culture, libraries, laboratories. Because enlightenment, getting smarter, understanding the world, it's not described as a luxury.
It's described as survival.
Exactly, survival. And this intense focus on education, science, critical thinking. It's positioned as the ultimate shield of democracy and the guide of technocracy.
Which raises a really profound question for you listening. What does this commitment to universal and lifelong education really tell you about the responsibility of the citizen in this system they're proposing?
Yeah. Are you just a voter who picks the experts every few years? Or are you expected to be something more, like a lifelong learner, an active participant in guiding that technocratic direction yourself? What's your role?